Oh, all right. Welcome to the Washington Exec video series, where we talk to GovCon executives and business leaders about current trends in the industry. I'm Ryan Alcorn. I'm joined today by author, professor, and Giant Oak CEO and founder, Gary Shiffman. Gary, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Ryan. Great to be with you.
Glad to have you on. Now, first things first, tell us a bit about your company, Giant Oak. What do you do, and why is it important for the current times we're living in?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Giant Oak is a software company. We have a platform, which is a software as a service, SaaS platform, which incorporates behavioral science and machine learning into the domains of finding bad activities. So behavioral science, big data, and bad guys is one way we talk about it. I'm a behavioral scientist by background. As you said, I'm a teacher. I'm on the faculty at Georgetown University. I spent time in DoD. I spent time in the Department of Homeland Security. And Giant Oak really spins out of DARPA and this world over the past 10 years of bringing machine learning and then artificial intelligence into defense applications. So we bring machine learning and AI from DARPA into behavioral science and bad activities. We bring it together. And we live in a very, very unique time. It's a moment in history in which we can do things today we couldn't have done 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And we can make massive increases in our ability to understand and understand bad actors, bad behaviors and threats, and make ourselves safer and more secure.
Wow, that's fascinating. Now, let's talk COVID. There's a large amount of emergency funding going out the door right now. And of course, that means potential for fraud. What are you seeing out there right now?
Massive spike in fraud. When the US government announces $2 to $3 trillion in money out the door, and then governments around the world announcing the same thing, there are fraudsters and criminals who are absolutely excited and thrilled, and they're in the game big time. And then people who might have been fence sitters, maybe not fraudsters in the past, or maybe low level, they might be stepping up their game. I mean, this is a truly historic moment in terms of spending, just in the US context, US federal dollars. It's a massive opportunity. And I fear, because we're spending so much money so quickly, that the normal deterrent effect of law enforcement isn't going to work. So this is a chance for massive spikes in fraud, and it's happening today, and it's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen the next day.
Wow. Okay. Something to think about. Now, what can financial institutions and government agencies do to prevent this kind of fraud? And how do these approaches differ in the public versus private sector?
Yeah, great question. So the answer is, the bottom line is screening. We have to do screening. We have to do upfront screening. If you look back to Hurricane Katrina and the money, the $6.3 billion that went out the door, in retrospect, we know that about 16% of that money was lost to fraud, waste, and abuse. And yet, a number of years later, we had the TARP program during the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, and the amount of corruption, fraud, and loss was less than 1%. So we went from 16% to maybe 0.2%. The difference was, during the TARP program, we had time to do screening up front before giving the money out. So here we are today, and this is this amazing confluence of events in history, which is, we've got to get billions and billions of dollars out the door quickly to people who genuinely need the money.
Right.
And we don't have time to do what we did during TARP, which is take 2 or 3 years to do screening. So what we need to do is we need to bring in technology, and we got to do it up front. So we can't use technology and people to do audit 2, 3 years later. That was the mistake of Katrina. We've got to use technology today up front to do screening real time, quickly. Almost everybody applying for aid, for money in these government funds, is legitimate and serious and honest, but some small percentage are not. So you have to use screening to identify those people up front. The difference between government and commercial, to be honest, not a lot. The fraud taking place in banks is just another dimension of the fraud taking place in the government agencies. A criminal is a criminal. They're going to find the money wherever they have some comparative advantage to beating the system. So there's really going to be a lot of overlap in methods and methodologies, and really screening is the key to everybody.
I see. Oh, that's fascinating. Well, Gary, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. And you also have a new book out. I wanted to give you an opportunity to do a little plug for it.
Ryan, you're a good man. I didn't even know you were going to do that. I just happen to have a copy here. It's my dog-eared pages, Economics of Violence. It is available, and a lot of the things I talk about, the application of behavioral science to illicit activity, is described at length there, and it's actually very appropriate given the zeitgeist in the United States over police and police reform. It has a lot to say about that as well.
Fascinating. Well, I look forward to reading it.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Good chatting.
You too.